It's another edition of WRAL Triangle and Two. I'm Mark Bergin. He's Luis Fernandez. NC State in the Military Bowl against ECU. The Wolfpack, 5 consecutive bowl games. They'll end the season against ECU, the same opponent that they're going to have to open the 2025 season. Luis Fernandez, the floor is yours.
I can't remember, and I'm sure it's happened before, but like, what a weird coinky dink. You know what I mean? To have that kind of end of season beginning. I'm curious to see like if there's gamesmanship and like chess being. The rosters will be completely different between the end of the season and the beginning of next season. But it's almost like, do you want to show your full hand? Like, what's more important, a bowl game or the first game of next season? It's fascinating stuff. It is fascinating stuff, Mark, that I've never had to think about before.
It's strange. The first thing that came to my mind without doing a ton of research into this was when Vince Young and the Texas Longhorns under Mac Brown won the national championship. The year before, they had played Michigan and won in the Rose Bowl. And that was kind of Vince Young's coming out party on a national stage. Then the next year, they run the table and play that epic game against USC. So back-to-back Rose Bowls. But to end a season and then to open the next season against the same opponent, man, I'd have to go back and look at some of the record books. I'm sure it hasn't happened in a long time.
I mean, yeah, it's happened at some point, but like, it's weird. It's a little bit funky. And it's even more funky when you're considering the fact that it's 2 in-state, rivals, in-state foes, however you want to phrase it. I mean, there's animosity between these 2 teams, at least historically, of the fan bases. The last time they played was 2022, to start off the season in Greenville, where it kind of came down to ECU not making some field goals. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be cool. Dave Doran, NC State head coach Dave Doran, said on Thursday that, hey, it's about finishing a season strong. You want to put an exclamation point on it. And I think both of these teams have that potential because of what the matchup is.
Yeah, 3 consecutive wins for NC State over ECU. And before that, ECU had won 3 in a row.
Yeah.
I think NC State's very fortunate to get CJ Bailey back for the 2025 season. And then at the same time, losing KC Concepcion, we'll see where he transfers to. We don't know that information at the time of this recording, but NC State's best offensive player is going to be on a different team next year. But you're really fortunate bringing Bailey back, who I think did a really nice job filling in for Grayson McCall, who had to retire due to injuries, but pressed into action as a true freshman. I think he actually did a really nice job this season. So there's that. And then I've got another thought about the defensive side of the ball. But again, with Bailey coming back next year to get him more and more experience, I thought he looked good as a true freshman. That's my point, Lewis.
Agreed. And when you look at, the record books, if you will, and you're judging based off of like what CJ Bailey did this season compared to other, quarterbacks in NC State history, you're comparing it to players like Phillip Rivers and Russell Wilson. I mean, that's anytime you're in that kind of conversation where it's like you're in that 1, 2, 3 range with those guys, that's pretty good. And CJ Bailey, I think, only continued to grow. He really showed flashes of his potential, of his arm strength, of his accuracy. Did he make fresh mistakes throughout the course of the year? Yes, he did. Is losing KC Concepcion a big deal? It is. He didn't do as well this season as he did his freshman year. But the other thing with NC State, right, is that they've essentially brought back like almost everyone else on the offense, it feels like. Hollywood Smothers, Wesley Grimes, Noah Rogers, Justin Jolie. So they're losing KC Concepcion is a big deal for them, but I think they also have a lot of other skill players who can, step up and continue that growth. And to me, that is the kind of focus for NC State in this game, is just continue to ride the momentum that you had at the end of the season, continue to show that growth. Coaches say all the time that the bowl game can be like a springboard towards the future. If that's the case, I want to see NC State use that, especially on the offensive side.
All right. Defensive side of the ball, defensive coordinator Tony Gibson's now the head coach at Marshall. I can't wait to see, are they still going to run a 3-3-5 defensive scheme, which they ran under Gibson? What does the defense look like now that he had a tremendous level of success. And we could talk about Peyton Wilson. We could talk about Davin Vann, who had 6 forced fumbles this season and is, your star senior edge rusher for the NC State Wolfpack. So what does that look like? Not just in this game, but this is a preview to next season when you're going to have a new DC under Dave Dorn's staff. That's a big blow, Lewis. And that's something where what your calling card has been for NC State is playing 1 possession games, winning the line of scrimmage, winning the turnover battle, and having a really stout defense.
Yeah, I mean, losing Tony Gibson is tough. That is, he's consistently been one of the better defensive coordinators, one of the better assistant coaches in the country. Doran said that he's super excited for him to get the opportunity that he will have at Marshall. Gibson is a West Virginia guy, so for him to be able to get back home, I think that's really cool. But it's going to be tough. I don't expect too much of a change from a schematic perspective, just because there's not a whole lot of time to make that change. Freddie Autry-Lindsay, who is the Nichols coach, will be the acting defensive coordinator, the interim defensive coordinator, kind of working on putting the plan together. He's a former NC State guy. He played linebacker, I believe, for the Wolfpack back in the early aughts. He was part of kind of like some of those NC State teams that just had a really strong defense, some of those great runs they had in the early 2000s. This is for him. It's like a tryout for defensive coordinator because, Dave Doran has said they're not going to rush that hire. They're going to make sure they make the right decision for the program and for the players. So this is his opportunity to see what he can do, put it all out there. I think that's something the players are aware of. They want to play well for him because he is well liked, and he is, a Wolfpack, a former Wolfpack player.
Yeah, at stake too with NC State. So you got ECU in the bowl game, and then to open next season, Dave Dorn is going to be the most tenured head coach in the state of North Carolina by like a long shot.
By a mile.
I know you mentioned this on one of your sportscasts at WRAL, Lewis. It's like Manny Diaz in year 2 at Duke's going to be the second most tenured head coach. And Dave Dorn's obviously been there. Was it 13 years now? So
you have 7 football bowl subdivision teams in North Carolina, right? So like those, the Power 4, the Group of 5 type schools, and 5 of the 7 will have a new coach this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Manny Diaz is the second longest tenured coach, and he's just in year 2. So I think it's going to be really, it's so, I don't know. There's so much changing with college football. I think it's kind of fascinating. Doran has become this elder statesman in the state of North Carolina. Dave Clawson was up there with him as well. And Dave Clawson recently retiring, or stepping down, I should say, from Wake Forest, becoming an advisor for the Demon Deacons. And he was just like, kind of was in a Tony Bennett type situation where he was like, I'm done. It's not, the current landscape is not for me anymore.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. Next year will be Dave Dorn's 13th year with the Wolfpack. So just to make sure that everyone's like, get your but
again, I remember when he was first hired at Northern Illinois. Like it's wild. It's wild how fast time flies.
It's funny. I go shopping at the grocery store. I'll go and they've got this like
you go shopping at the grocery store, Mark.
Yeah,
breaking news.
No, but I'll be at Harris Teeter and they've got this cardboard cutout of Dave Dorn drinking a Coca-Cola, and it's got to be from like right around when he was first hired. He's looks a little bit younger, but every year they've got it out on display, and it's just like, man, he's been here a little while.
We gotta update the cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
But going back to the game, the team that they're playing, ECU, right? I mean, obviously you have the in-state like rivalry perspective of it, the in-state foe perspective. Mm-hmm. Both teams have kind of toned down rivalry talk, if you will. But I mean, the Pirates are kind of one of the hotter teams in the country to end the season.
4 or 5, Lewis.
Yeah, they fire Mike Houston after the Army loss, and Blake Harrell comes in the interim and ends up getting promoted to be the main guy, and he's got East Carolina playing well.
All right, I've got some actual insight other than that I grocery shop at Harris Teeter, Lewis. The Pirates have outscored their opponents under Blake Harrell. 203 to 140. Pirates are averaging more than 40 points per game and 504 yards of offense during that span. So you talk about hot There you go. There's some actual analysis, some actual insight for you.
Well, and the wins that they had too. I mean, they beat Temple, FAU, Tulsa, North Texas, and the only loss was to Navy. And Navy's a pretty good team, and North Texas is a solid team. Like, this is not like this is going to be a fun game. To me, like, this is one of those bowl games that could mean something compared to like when bowl games don't mean anything. So I'm excited from that perspective to watch these two teams battle it out, just because of that connectiveness of the overlapping of the fan bases. You kind of have to do whatever you can to make bowl games count in this day and age. And I think this is one of those things that's going to make this fun, and it's going to make people want to show up and watch and pay attention to the Military Bowl.
All right, December the 28th, NC State and ECU Military Bowl, Annapolis, Maryland. Cannot wait for this one. He's Luis Fernandez. I'm Mark Bergin. This has been another edition of WRAL Triangle and Two. If you haven't, check out our other bowl preview podcast for UNC and Duke. Thanks again so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Till then, take care. So long, everybody.